7 reasons why the twin flames idea can be toxic and disempowering, aka why I abandoned the notion. Now, here's the thing. If you love and have found benefit in the idea of having a twin flame, that's wonderful. You do you. I'm not here to try to change your mind because I trust in your ability to make the right decisions for your own life. Hopefully, something I wrote about this topic in the past helped you, and I wish you all the best in your relationship with yourself and your partner moving forward. But personally, as hard as I tried to make the twin flame idea work for me, and as much as I tried to make it a viable, down-to-earth reality, it became increasingly obvious through the years that I had to extricate myself from it completely. Here are 7 reasons why the twin flame idea can be toxic and disempowering, and why I've decided to move on from the notion altogether. 1. The notion that your twin flame completes you or is the other half of your soul is anxiety-provoking and disempowering. Firstly, can you imagine how humongous a burden it is to place on someone else's shoulders the responsibility of completing you or even being the other half of your literal soul? That's an immediate recipe for dysfunction and horrific codependency in my book. The twin flame notion is an anxiety-provoking idea that disempowers us because it makes our wholeness entirely dependent upon someone else and what they do or don't do. Can you see how messed up that is? Besides, it is my deep experience and realization that the soul is innately whole and complete. It's just the fragmented mind that believes otherwise. As such, how can someone else be the other half of your soul? We need to question our spiritual beliefs carefully because they can be the difference between mental peace and psychological torture. 2. The idea of having a twin flame can cause people to stay in relationships that are unhealthy and blatantly toxic. Hearing from a friend of mine that the twin flame idea caused her to stay in a toxic relationship long past its expiry date because she believed he was her twin flame made me want to scream and cry at the same time. The reality is that I've seen this happen a lot, particularly on the Twin Flame Facebook group I used to be an admin of for about 5 years. There were so many people in that group claiming to have twin flames, but when they described their connections, they were clearly one-sided or else utterly toxic and harmful. When we get into our minds the idea that someone is our twin flame due to confirmation bias, it can be an extremely hard belief to shake. After all, it makes us feel special and shrouds our relationships in a kind of holy glow that we're less likely to want to give up. 3. The runner and chaser twin flame dynamic can lead to people feeling obligated to deal with bad behavior and trapped in abusive relationships. The push and pull experience in relationships is common, aka, things are normal, we get into an argument, then we make up. Fairly typical, right? The issue with the idea of twin flame relationships is that they're largely defined by something known as a runner and chaser stage, where one person is pulling away from the relationship and then the other is pursuing that person and trying to bring them back. Perhaps things work out for a while, and then again, the runner and chaser pattern happens. Now, I've heard of people getting into some pretty blatantly abusive relationships and yet saying things like, "Oh, she totally ghosted me and pretends I don't exist. We're in the runner and chaser stage." Or, "He's behaving in such a controlling way because he's the chaser and I'm the runner." In psychology, this push and pull dynamic is known as the cycle of abuse, where tension builds. There's an incident of abuse, reconciliation occurs, and then a period of calm before the cycle starts again. So what abuse do people tend to justify in twin flame relationships? Some of these abusive tactics can involve things like being overly controlling, restricting what you do, who you see, where you go, shaming and blaming you, criticizing and putting you down, guilt tripping or emotionally blackmailing you, humiliating you in front of others, controlling your finances, displaying extremely possessive or jealous behavior, ridiculing and dismissing you, accusing you of unfaithfulness, neglecting you, e.g., emotional withholding, silent treatment, spying on or monitoring you, gaslighting and hoovering you, playing mind games with you, abandoning and ghosting you. All of the above abusive tactics and more have been suffered yet justified in the name of being in a twin flame relationship. But there's a big difference between a healthy and satisfying relationship and one that is mentally, emotionally, or even physically toxic. 4. The belief that having a twin flame will solve all your problems is a lie. The notion of having a harmonious twin flame union that will provide you with utter peace, fulfillment, and unending joy sounds magical on the surface. But the reality is that we are all imperfect beings with flaws, annoying quirks, and traumas to work through. We will inevitably feel a lack of peace, an absence of fulfillment, and other uncomfortable emotions at times, and that is totally normal. It's part of being human, and we don't need to pathologize and run away from it into a romantic fantasy. The happily ever after and eternal union story is one of the best marketing gimmicks. But the honest truth is that we don't know if our love will last forever. We don't know if our relationships will be our happily ever after, even though we may desperately need and want them to be. This doesn't mean we become cynical and denounce love and relationships completely, but it does mean that we become more grounded and realistic. In my experience, the more realistic and down-to-earth we are in our relationships, the healthier and stronger they become. 5. The twin flame idea has caused many people to abandon their healthy and functional relationships in favor of an illusory ideal. This is one of the saddest parts of the twin flames nonsense. So many good, mutually respectful, and healthy relationships have ended because one person within the couple has found someone else who they believe is their twin flame. And therefore, they feel the need to abandon their current relationship in favor of their ideal one. Positioning the supposed twin flame relationship above other relationships as superior is harmful, toxic, and life-destroying for many people. Imagine this. Everything was harmonious in Jane and Bob's relationship until one day, Bob discovered the twin flame idea and boom. Now Bob is no longer happy because his relationship doesn't meet his fantasy spiritual ideal. He realizes that the crush he has at work on the receptionist must be his true twin flame because they have such a fiery spark. And so he abandons his wife in pursuit of this newer, more ideal twin flame relationship that will apparently fulfill his every need, make him whole and complete, and give him eternal happiness. It sounds crazy, but this shit actually happens, and it breaks my heart. 6. The twin flame notion misses the whole point of spiritual partnerships. Perhaps the twin flame notion is just a result of our hyper-individualistic, narcissistic society that elevates the individual and their happiness above everything else. Perhaps that's just a cynical observation. Either way, the unhealthy preoccupation and obsession with another idealized person who is the missing half of your soul, to the exclusion of everything and everyone else, is self-absorbed and missing the point of love-centered spirituality. 7. There are scam artists and sharks who smell the blood of emotional vulnerability in the water and are using it to their benefit, as documentaries such as Escaping Twin Flames and Desperately Seeking Soulmate, Escaping Twin Flames universe have come out. It has become increasingly clear that the twin flame idea has caused many to get sucked into disturbing and controlling cult-like groups. Being raised in a fundamentalist religious cult-like environment, this is extremely disturbing to me and something that triggers feelings of anger and regret that I got into the whole twin flame thing in the first place. Although with self-compassion, I can understand why. The highly emotional nature of the twin flame idea has led some scam artists who claim to be twin flames to charge huge amounts of money to access their services. I'm talking in the thousands of dollars range. There is so much I could say about this, but I want to keep what I write simple and direct and encourage you to please exercise caution. Paying thousands of dollars for courses and coaching packages that promise you to find your twin flame is not just ridiculous, but, in my opinion, unethical to a criminal degree. Keep your money and find someone who's actually trained as a licensed relationship counselor. You'll be much better off in the long run, financially, emotionally, and psychologically.